Well, I think the team's pretty excited about leaving early tomorrow morning to go to Boise. We've had a couple, three pretty good practices after studying Buffalo on film for quite a while now, for about 4 or 5 days. They're an awful good football team. Do a lot of things really well. It's interesting that we kind of mirror each other a lot. The offensive schemes are very similar. The defensive schemes are very similar. The special team schemes are very similar. And if I'm judging things right, I think the talent level is very, very close. So it ought to be an awful good game, and it ought to be close and tight, and hopefully we can get into another overtime game and set an NCAA record, and as long as we win the overtime, that'd be good.
Is that what you're shooting for, Coach?
Well, right now I'm shooting for a close game, and hopefully we have a chance to win it at the end.
Rocky, the fact that your guys have played on blue turf, does that give you a bit of an edge to that atmosphere up there?
I don't know if it does or not. I used to think that the blue turf was a huge advantage for the home team. And then 2 years ago, we practiced at West Hills High School, which has blue turf. And I asked every one of the players after the practice if they thought it made any difference whatsoever, and the players said no, it didn't make any difference whatsoever. And so we went up and played well on it, so I guess it doesn't make a difference.
Do you think it's attractive, that blue turf?
Well, I'm a traditionalist. I think that a field should look green, even though I think the turf now is better than some grass fields. The way the turf has been developed, I think it's safer. I think it's softer. It has to be a pretty good grass field to match what the turf is now.
You mentioned that the teams are pretty evenly matched talent-wise. The experts in Vegas have San Diego State as an underdog. Do you take that as a lack of respect for either San Diego State or the Mountain West Conference?
Not whatsoever, because I looked at the line this morning too. It was 1 point. How can you take any offense? I think they think it's pretty close too. Now, if it was 14 points or something like that, you might start wondering.
Coach, would you say this team is more similar to you guys than any team you've played all year?
Yes. Yes.
So is that a good thing or a bad thing in terms of the fact that you're probably familiar with the stuff that they'll be throwing at you, right?
I actually think it gives the offenses on both teams an advantage because they've seen it enough that they've got some very veteran, experienced coaches on their side, and we've got some veteran, experienced coaches on our side. It gives offensive coordinators a chance to scheme, and they know it works because they've done it in practice, in spring ball and in fall camp, and we still go and we will today and Wednesday we go our offense against our defense for 10 minutes where we run our defense and our offense runs our offense, so that we get full speed work, and we'll do that today and we'll do it next Wednesday, and so they can try all their new stuff out on us and see if it works or not.
So you have new stuff though that you guys have been studying.
Oh, we always have new stuff.
How many different video games did you watch on tape from them?
I've watched every single one of them. Now, we've only broke down the last 4. Actually break it down and put it in the computer and all that. But we watch every single game of their season on defense, mostly to see if they have used trick plays, so at least we can practice the trick plays they've used, even though they won't use the same trick play, I'm sure. But mostly to see if they've changed throughout the year, and I'm sure they do that with us too. And on offense, we look to see if they've maintained the same defensive scheme throughout the year, depending on the kind of team they're playing. Obviously, we don't put much stock into looking at when they play spread teams because we're not a spread team. We put more stock in looking at the films where they played against pro-type teams.
Is there anything that you can take from the game they played against Bowling Green, the one that they lost?
No, other than I think that you can look at the two teams and they're kind of mirror images of each other. Mm-hmm. Now that score was 24-7. If I'm remembering right, it was 24-7, which might not sound as bad as 45-19. But guess what? they were dominated by Bowling Green. So I think the two teams started out slow and poorly, played very competitive football in the middle of the season. They won 8 out of 10. We won 7 out of 9. They could have won. They could have won one of their other games. We could have won 2 of our other games. I think the teams are almost probably have the same mentality. Our players will probably get along really, really good up until game time.
It seems like probably one of the biggest matches will be just on the line of scrimmage, considering how big they are. What are your thoughts on just your defensive line as the season has progressed and how they've improved, and how big of a challenge will it be for them?
Well, I mean, they're gigantic up front on offense, but it's not like that's the first big offensive line we've played against. I mean, the biggest offensive line I think we played against was Oregon State, and we seemed to do okay against them. And we've played some other big offensive lines. We're a little undersized on the defensive line, but not so much that it should make a difference. It's about execution.
Rocky, health-wise, is there anybody that's not going to be able to go?
Well, he's been out for a long time. Gabe Lemon is not going to be able to play. Everybody should be able to play. Now we have Zach Dilley is doing limited reps. Bryce Quigley is doing limited reps. We did get a guy back, though, Scott Graves, who hadn't played all year long because of an elbow injury. Okay, but he's going to play, and he was our best special teams player last year. By far our best special teams player last year, and he's a senior, so it's really neat for him that he gets to play. But our special teams will be better just because he's out there. I'll promise you that.
Is he on all the special teams, Coach?
He's on every one of them. Yeah.
Any rust from him? I mean, he hadn't played all year.
Well, I don't know. I think he played when we practiced the other day. He was really, really good, but I think that's because he's a lot fresher than the rest of them. So I asked him Saturday after Friday's practice, I said, "You're a little sore?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm a little sore." I mean, if you stand around not doing anything all year and then all of a sudden you go out and get some reps, you get sore.
Does his return kind of help, I guess, the morale of the team, considering that like they were chanting his name at the end of practice?
I think that's because our team has great respect for him, and he's really a good guy, and he's a team guy, and everybody likes him. I don't think it has anything to do with our morale. I think our morale's just fine.
Rocky, what do you know about Jeff Quinn?
Very little. I know a couple guys on the staff pretty well. Alex Wood, the offense coordinator, I know him pretty well. Lou Tepper, I know him pretty well. I've never met Coach Quinn, but one of his all-conference offensive linemen, all Big East offensive linemen, happens to be our assistant strength coach. So I've asked him some things about Coach Quinn, so I've got some. If we have to talk in front of the media or something and he starts getting frisky, I got some real good stuff on him from a former player.
You mentioned how some players are a little not as fresh. Has the strength and conditioning on Coach Hall, has it changed at all, considering just postseason, post-regular season?
No, we've kept it the same.
Yeah.
I mean, we lift weights. The travel squad guys who are going to do the playing, they lift a couple times a week, and the non-travel guys work 3 times a week. That's also a benefit of going to a bowl game. They get a couple weeks of training, especially the non-travel squad guys get a couple weeks of heavy lifting and stuff, so they're getting strong.
Coach, can you speak a little bit to just the guys who won your team awards at the banquet yesterday? Like, for example, the scout team kids, Kene Edikobu, I think you can.
Hey, you say it a
pronounce
lot
his
better
name.
than I do. That's
You can
good.
pronounce his name at the start of the year. I mean, like, he was a walk-on, right?
Yeah, he's a walk-on.
What did you guys see out of him? Just
I mean, he's a big, strong wide receiver, and he's gotten better as the year went along, and he's given us some really good looks because we've played against some big, tall, strong wide receivers. And he's developed. He's got a chance to be a good player. He needs to catch the ball more consistently, but when you're on the scout team, it doesn't matter if you catch it or not. It's just covering you, and he throws us around, pushes us around because we're not very big at corner. And when we play big receivers, that happens a lot. So he's done a really nice job. That's why he got the award.
You also had a special teams player of the year scout, with Kalon. Was that mainly because I noticed he's a pretty good kickoff returner. Do you see a future there? Or does he...
Yeah, I mean, all our young guys in the program, we think we've recruited pretty well. The only thing holding us back is a little bit of experience, and most of those guys are going to get a chance to be players next year. I mean, it's a little bit like our corners were this year. When we started the season, they weren't very good. Now we've got two that are pretty good now.
Coach, can you talk a little bit about what the impact the bowl game is going to have on your program, what it does for your team and moving forward beyond this year?
Well, number one, I think that if we hadn't been chosen for a bowl game, I think, and we deserved to be, I think the players would have come back with a completely different attitude in the second, as we get in the second semester of school. When you have a pretty good year and you're not rewarded for it like you should be, the attitude suffers a little bit. They don't come back with the same energy, the same enthusiasm, and it takes you a while to get them back. Whereas opposed to when you get picked and get to go to a bowl game, the attitude when they come back is they're fresh, they're happy, they're excited about trying to make the team better for the next year, especially the young guys, because now they get a chance to play because all those old seniors are gone, you know. The other reality is that we had 4 practices. Now we're going into straight game plan practices, but we had 4 practices where 2/3 of the practice was game planning and 1/3 of the practice was development of younger players. So they got 4 more practices than the teams that don't. Now, the teams that play late in December or early January, they get about 15 developmental practices. In fact, I put a proposal up in the head coaches meeting one time that the teams that go to bowl games don't get spring ball. Okay? And the teams that don't go to bowl games do get spring practice. Because it's if you're a late December deal, it's like an extra spring practice for next year's team. So we benefit a little bit, but the early bowl game, we don't benefit as much as some. But we sure benefit a whole lot more than if we wouldn't be going.
How about off the Mesa? How do you think the bowl game is going to play to the general community here?
I don't know. I think it has a lot to do with how it's perceived by the media. I really do. You know, people nowadays get spoiled very quickly. When I got here 5 years ago, we had a season that was 4-8, and everybody acted like that was the best thing that ever happened to this program. That was the best turnaround ever. Shoot, they played hard. The kids played hard. God, we got a chance to have a good team. Now 5 years later, we have a bowl team. 4 straight years in a bowl game, and the media, if they present it as that, like it should be, we're one of 29 teams in the country that have been to 4 straight bowl games. There's only 29, and we're one of them. There's only 5 non-BCS schools that have done that. We're one of them. I mean, you can even add our basketball team in there. We're one of 6 teams in the country that have been to 4 straight bowl games, and our basketball team's been to 4 straight NCAA tournaments. And we're the only non-BCS school that has done that. Now, you can get spoiled and act like it's no big deal that we're going to a bowl game, and it's all about how it's presented by the media. Because guess what? It's a big deal, and we're going, and that's a damn big deal. And it shows that the program is solid. The program's got kids in the program that play hard. They play you to the end. We won 3 out of 4 overtime games. I mean, that should be celebrated. I mean, these kids should be thanked. They should be patted on the back. It should be celebrated. And if the media presents it like that, okay, it'll do a heck of a lot to make this program better. If they present it the other way, it's going to hurt this program. Kids hear it all. Kids we're recruiting hear it all. Okay? And other schools will use it. If it's a positive experience and the media presents it as a positive deal, our recruits hear that. If it's not presented that way, our recruits hear that too, and other schools use that against us. Let's put it right out there. It's how the media presents it that develops the attitude of the public.
So do you feel like you have a lot at stake this weekend, this coming weekend?
I don't think it has anything to do with winning or losing. I mean, if we win, I mean, it'll be chalked up as we're supposed to. If we lose, it might be presented as the worst thing that ever happened. Now, let me tell you again, 1 out of 29 Division I institutions have been to 4 straight bowl games. We're 1 out of 29. Ah, dang. That's something special now. That's something special. And we've been to 4 straight bowl games. First time in the history of the school. That's something special. But we can be spoiled. We can be spoiled and present it the other way. And guess who presents it to the general public? A lot of people right in this room.
And how has the media done at presenting it?
I'm not going to comment on that.
Coach, with the bowl.
I mean, we do it with our pro teams too. I mean, you know, the Chargers are only 7-7, but after the Broncos victory, oh my God, I thought we were going to the Super Bowl.
Coach, with the bowl game comes the bowl week experience. Last year, you guys were here. You got to do the SeaWorld thing. Anything on the agenda that you've seen for the Potato Bowl in Boise? Anything that you're looking forward to, or have you even gotten that far with the extra stuff before the game?
No, all those. I've been lucky enough to have been to several bowl games. I've been lucky that way. They all have a particular way of handling it, and the kids have a good time at every single one of them. I mean, this one starts out with we have a bowl, our starters against their starters, and they bowl against each other for, I forget, meat and potatoes basically that you get to give away to charity. They take you up on the mountain and you go snowmobiling and you go sledding and all those kind of things, and you go race go-karts, and I mean the kids will have our players will have a good time. And hopefully we've been to enough bowl games that it's not distracting. Guess what? We've been to four in a row. Did you know that? We've been to 4 bowl games in a row. Did you know it's 1 out of, there's only 29 teams that have done that, and we're one of them? You know, there's only 2 of them in the state of California that has done that? Us and Stanford? Did y'all know that? Did you really? I mean, because that's not the way I see it being presented.
How do you see it being presented, Coach?
The other way, we're spoiled.
Spoiled?
Mm-hmm.
In what sense? Like,
Why aren't we going to the Rose Bowl? Well, we weren't quite that good, but you know what? We're a pretty good football team. We're not quite that good yet. Someday we will be. Someday we will be. And after you do that a couple times, I saw it work at TCU. After you do that a couple times, guess what? That's not good enough either. Now you got to be in the BCS championship game, or you're not worth a darn. I'll tell you what, Alabama, I'll tell you what, they ought to change that coach because he hadn't gone 4 straight years in a row to the BCS championship game.
kind of like what
He gets a
happened-
raise. He gets a raise till $7 million or something, right?
Kind of like what happened with Mac Brown at Texas.
Yeah, there's one. There's a good example.
He won
Weren't they 8-4 this year? And if they'd have won the last game, they would have won the Big 12 championship? Really? Golly, but that ain't good enough. Let's get rid of his ass. He can't coach.